Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred, and this is just a quick video that was inspired by an experience I had last night. And I want to call this video Cultural Burdens Are Just the Air We Breathe. And, some people will say that the air we breathe, the water we swim in, right? We're just so used to it that we're not even aware of it anymore. So last night, I was actually woken up from sleep by a noxious smell. It smelled like burning rubber. And I was going to different parts of the house to see where it was stronger. It was stronger in the back. Woke up my husband. We went outside. It was really strong in the backyard. And our hypothesis was that a skunk had sprayed somewhere very close to our house. And we decided, well, there's nothing we can do about it. So we went back to sleep. We woke up in the morning feeling like, oh, we don't really smell it anymore, right? And that was that. Then we went on a walk in the morning, went out, walked in nature, came back, and then came into the house. And I said, oh, our house smells like skunk still. Apparently, the smell can get in the air conditioning ducts and just recirculate for many weeks. And so now every time we go out of the house and we come back, we realize, oh, it smells like skunk in our house. And it's funny how we become so acclimated to it or desensitized to it that we don't really smell it. I'm sitting in my house right now and I'm not really able to smell it, but I guarantee that if I went outside and came back in, I would, right? And so this is exactly what cultural burdens are like for many of us. It's really, really hard to see them for what they are and to see the burdensome nature of them, maybe the extreme nature of them, until we go out of our culture and come back. And so this can happen in lots of ways. And this is why I actually think the internet is really great, because it exposes us to people from different perspectives, people from different cultures, people from different countries, people that have different traditions than we do. And we can then come back and shine a little bit of a light on our own and question. I think this is why so many people are going through religious deconstruction, because back in the day, we were just in our bubble. This is just the way it is. If you've seen The Mandalorian, right? This is just the way, kind of like robotic. This is the way. There's a funny story about these monks where every time they would get together to pray, the cat would come and bother them. So they would end up tying the cat to a post so that the cat wouldn't come and bother them while they were praying. But then it just became such a habit that hundreds of years later, when the priests prayed, they had to make sure that they had a cat that they could tie to the post. And they had no idea why they tied the cat to the post. It was just a very important ritual that they did before prayer, you know. Um, there's so many stories like this. Like I remember when I first lived in Istanbul, Turkey, there's a prayer call from the mosque 5 times a day. And I was astounded by it every time I would hear it when I first got there. Oh, 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 oh. But after a couple years being there, I was so desensitized. We would have guests come in and, uh, visitors that would be touring the country, and they would react every time they heard the prayer call. And I would say, oh, yeah, I didn't even notice it, right? I didn't hear it. And I imagine someone growing up in a culture where they have the prayer call 5 times a day and then going abroad and living somewhere else for a little while, maybe not even realizing that they're missing it, and then coming back and saying, oh yeah, maybe it feels familiar. It feels like home, right? So culture can feel good or bad, but as we go out of it and we come back in, we see it with new eyes and we're able to question it and say, what parts of this are serving me? Do I want to keep? And what parts maybe are not serving me that I want to get rid of? Just another little anecdote. I remember hearing this story of a girl who I guess every dinner growing up, her family would have essentially the same dinner, but they would eat chicken every night. And then when she went to college and she ate in the cafeteria and they would have all kinds of different things, she was astounded that other people, she couldn't wrap her mind around the fact that other people didn't eat chicken every night. And I really think that happens to all of us. The way that we grow up, many of our young parts think this is just the way it is. They don't question it. They really think everyone must be like this. I remember my ex-sister-in-law who spent some time in India telling a story about living with this family. And I believe it was she accidentally dropped a glass or like something broke off the table, or maybe she spilled something. And the family, she was shocked that they didn't react by yelling at her and chastising her and belittling her. They just cleaned it up and were very kind. And she was amazed. Wait, there are people out there who, this isn't normal, right? So sometimes we need to see a contrast to see, oh, wow, that behavior, maybe it wasn't okay. Maybe this was problematic, right? Sometimes our parts are in denial. We'll say, oh, I didn't experience trauma. I didn't experience anything negative, because culturally it was packaged in such a way. A big one for me was spanking, right? I always thought the people who were abused were other people out there, right? Because the physical abuse in my home was packaged as ordained by God, a loving, good thing. And I do think my parents had very good intention. They genuinely believed that they were doing the right, loving thing, but it was still physical abuse, right? But it was packaged as spanking. And so it was accepted by people in the culture and by my own parts until I got some space. I had my own children. I started to question, wait a minute, why would I hit my child to teach them not to hit? That doesn't make sense, right? And how could this be good for them? This is teaching them to be afraid of me, to be disconnected from me. It's not teaching them what I want them to know, and I started questioning it. But so there's so many things like that, right? Where it really takes us getting out of our culture for a while. So that's why a lot of people, when they are still living under their parents' roof and they're trying to do deep, complex trauma healing work, I let them know that they can, of course, develop relationship between their self and their parts, but it's not until they get out of that environment that they'll be able to see clearly. And because in many ways their parts have, like, to survive, they have to sometimes fawn or see things a certain way, right? Because it's not safe to challenge or that kind of thing. But once we get out of that environment, we can see with fresh eyes. And that doesn't mean we need to demonize our parents or retaliate or anything like that. We can just go, we can validate our own young parts experience. Oh, that was traumatic for you. That was hard. That wasn't okay. Um, so I hope you appreciate this. If you want to give an example in the comments, I would love to hear something that was just the air that you breathed. I'll often use examples of authoritarianism, codependency, just tradition, religious practices, enmeshment in family. It could be racism, sexism, patriarchy, capitalism, or, economic things. But it was just accepted in the culture. But then maybe you began to wake up and start questioning and deconstructing it. Yeah, if you have examples of that, share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear.